what's happening. I got a used engine here. I just put in a 2007 Honda Accord. I put a 40,000 mile engine here. That's in the old video. I think that's the computer video, and then there was another video I did. I can't remember. That should have been the last two from this video here, if I recall properly. Don't hold me on that. I have to look back at my archive. But this is a J30 Honda motor. This one had a blown head gasket. We're just going to do a simple disassembly, just an inspection. It's an automatic vehicle, but it's pretty much irrelevant at its state. There's no flex plate or flywheel if you have a manual. So it was a flex plate. This was an automatic, so that's off. And there was just a simple 12.17 millimeter socket that I had to utilize to get those off. And I currently do have those in my junk pile, so we're not going to worry too much about that. But that's what you would use to pull off the flex plate, or it should apply to the manual also. You would take those 17 millimeter 12-point fasteners out. So before, I need to get on the engine stand, and then we'll go through the complete disassembly. We'll just take off the compressor accessory bracket, which is here. Take off the timing components on the other side here, pull off the valve covers, and just inspect the water pump, inspect the engine, see if we can see what happens. Like I said, this motor is going to the junkyard tomorrow. Well, they're coming to pick it up for a core, so that this will be gone. Just a little bit of info if you don't know how to find your engine code. It is going to be inscribed on the front of the engine. Front meaning it's not the front bank, because this is going to be bank 2. This is how the engine will sit. Your EGR valve here is going to be the reference. So you'll have the front left. So your front left, that's the radiator side. Rear right will be considered the rear firewall side. That's how I remember that, rear right. So your engine code is going to be inscribed here. This is going to be the J30A5 series engine that we'll be disassembling today. And let's start off by pulling off this rear main seal housing cover, which is going to be a 10 millimeter. And I think we're just going to pull these off, and then there's two 10 millimeter fasteners at the bottom we're going to have to remove, and then we should just need to pry this off. This is held in by an RTB sealant, and we'll see what everything looks like. I do have the oil drained already also, so let's get to it. Hopefully I can get this completely disassembled in 10 minutes your time and 30 minutes my time. You see these little ears here. Oh, getting the camera. Allow you to nicely pry this off. Here's the rear of the rear main seal housing. Here's our seal here. It does have a lip where it's only going to go in but so far. Now we can put this on the engine stand, and I can remove everything as I normally would. There's a seal up here. If you notice, and it pretty much doesn't go anywhere. It just gets blocked off here. Not sure if that's utilized on a different variation or not, but just make note there's a seal there. 3. We're going to work on getting the timing components off first. So the harmonic balancer, to remove that, you're going to need a special tool. It's a 19 millimeter. It's 67101. I had this for a while, and it's pretty much looked like this. We're going to have to set it inside of, pull this off. Put it inside of this hex here, lock it in place, put your socket in there and break it loose. You're going to have to get some good leverage, put it that way. So this is off. Alright, we're going to work on getting the tensioner out. It's going to be a 12 down at the bottom and a 14. Where's my... Here's the tensioner and idler assembly. I'm going to use a 10mm to get every fastener I see around the timing cover, and we'll get off the motor mount bracket last. Getting a better look at the motor, and we can see that there was like some remnants of coolant leaking here by the water pump. And just taking a look in the bypass tube in the back at the thermostat housing, I can see a lot of rust on the impeller there. So we should expect to see that. Let me see. So timing marks. If you're doing your timing on this engine, you'll see this notch here. It's going to be the same on the other side. You'll see a notch inscribed there. If you get it at top dead center, the cylinder 1, which is going to be right here, will be corresponding with that notch up there. So I'm going to do that for you and show you what that looked like. Got the timing marks lined up now. Don't ask me how, but the key is actually missing. So basically the compression of the harmonic balancer was what was keeping this crank in time. Don't ask me how. I don't know. Anyway, so the timing mark for the crank, you'll see a little up arrow. It's going to line up with this mark here that's on the block. There's an arrow there. If that's at top dead center, the cam for the bank 1 should be lined up appropriately with the valve cover there. I got it white out on the inscribed mark on that bank 1, and on bank 2, where you will see 1 here, should be also lined up with that mark inscribed on the valve cover. So now we're going to work on getting the motor mount bracket off, 14mm, and then we'll just run and pull off all the components and inspect the water pump. Now we got the water pump exposed here. We have the tensioner pulley, idler pulley, time belt, crank gear, cam gears, and we see all the shebang here. So we're going to go ahead and get these off. I'm just going to pull off in no order, but if you were, ideally, you know, there's no right or wrong way of pulling the timing belt off, especially when everything's exposed. I'm just going to run off the idler here, but typically you want to pull off the tensioner first. So let me just do that, just because. 10mm. Now if you had to decompress this, you'll put it like in a vise, put a grenade pin or some type of small pin that'll fit through this hole and line it up with the plunger here. So the portion that pushes out. So you would compress it in the vise, or like a C-clamp or something like that, and then you would just stick something in here. You can move the shaft here at the top with a pair of pliers if you want to get it lined up, and that'll work out pretty easily. So I'm gonna put that right there. Pull this off. That's how you pull that tensioner pulley off. I mean, this looks like it's worn out too. It's a lot of heat here. So it's either, so this likely was failing, either that or the water pump. I think, oh, the water pump was seasoned up. That's what it was. That's exactly what it was. And I'll tell you why, because the girl put water in the car for the longest, and it sat for a year before it got to me, before we could finally put a motor in it, because of very long lengthy story. So let's pull this water pump off and inspect that. That's gonna be a 10 millimeter. This, okay, I was wrong. I guess the belt was holding in place. So more than likely the tensioner pulley was failing. I mean, that is, yeah, that is obvious sign of heat. But you'll see the impeller what I'm talking about. It doesn't look good on here. I think I got it all. Should be nothing left in there. There's the impeller there. It was rusted up pretty bad, and I saw that through there, through the little hole. All right, now we're going to work on getting the crank sensor off. Just 1, 2, 3 10 millimeter fasteners, and it should be a top dead center and a crank sensor. Let's see what it looks like. Goes off. Plate. So we got sensor off here. So there are 2 sensors in here. So we got lightly, just like I was saying on the other models, you have 2 different sensors, a top dead center and a crank position. But here you can see there's 2 different sensors here integrated. There's a, see like it goes in a fixed position. You can't screw this up. There's a dial here fixing that little indentation. It comes with a separate harness just in case there's some issues. If I can get it off there. So you got the sensor, then it comes with a separate harness there. Now we can remove the gear that doesn't have a key in it. Don't ask me how. I guess the car ate it. So here's the oil filter housing for the VTEC. You have the oil pressure switch here and the solenoid that activate the plunger in here to redirect the oil for the VTEC solenoid control system. You also have an oil pressure sender right here. So this is basically let you know if it's either on or off. This will basically ground the light if there's low oil pressure. This pressure switch only lets you know if there's adequate oil pressure during the VTEC process. So there's the difference there. One works with the engine, one works with the VTEC, but they both are going to lightly work with the VTEC, if I recall, probably on this engine. So don't hold me to that. So I want to say, dealing with the cylinder deactivation system, it does utilizes feedback from the oil pressure switch and the oil sender to ensure that there's normal function. So one pretty much checks another. So there are some checks and balances with that. So I'm pretty sure it's probably like that also with this VTEC system. Now this is just me not looking up description of operation. I mean, most of these engines probably utilize a different source of feedback. I'm not perfect in all engines, so don't hold me on that. All right, now we're looking at the coolant bypass or the thermostat housing. Here, it should be already taken off. It should be already removed. This does house the EGR valve. Over to my left here, you have two coolant temperature sensors. I think this is going to be, one is going to be A and one is going to be B. I want to say this is an A here at the bottom, and then you got B over there. So these are both the same part number. They just utilize, they just serve different purposes, being in different locations. And you have a series of coolant lines that go to various locations, lower radiator hose, upper radiator hose, and then you got a thermostat and heater core, and off to a different location there. So let's get that off. That's held in by 12mm fasteners, 1, 2, 3, and 1, 2, just like that. Now you can remove this coolant pipe if you must, but I'm going to leave that in there for right now. I'll leave that in there because I want to show you why you probably shouldn't pull on this. Alright, now we're going to work on removing this the lower intake. The upper intake just comes off pretty simple. I mean, there's 1,000 videos on that. That's the only thing I'm really not going to show. But this is going to be a 5/16 to remove the injectors. Should just come right on out. Normally what I would do is spray WD-40 or some type of oil down in the injectors, but I don't care about this motor. So you can see how dry it was. It didn't want to comply. So if I was to put penetrating oil down in there, it would have made it a lot easier in slipping out. Or you can just, well, you can manage getting these clips off to disconnect them, but nothing hurt by just prying it up, because worst case scenario is you just got to replace the O-rings, which went with the fuel reel that are sitting in there. Again, this is trash motor, so just do the same for the other side. So basically the valve cover don't have to come off to take these out. See, this is a different story. Yep, it's a different story. This came out. You have a quick disconnect line here. Simply just would take this cover off. Compress this. Pull it out. Alright, now we're going to move on the lower intake. Why is this like corn here? I saw this when I pulled the motor out. I swear it's like an ear of corn. Is it not? Hell am I touching? Alright, let's see what we gotta do. Pull this gasket out. You'll see the divider. There's a sensor. Uh-oh. Hope that glare didn't mess up anything. Oh, shit. Alright, so we got the divider. We just pull the gasket out. Now here you'll see the knock sensor connector. We're on bank 2. In the front here, there's a connector for it. single wire sensor. Now we're going to work on getting this lower intake off, which I'm going to have to use a boxed in wrench because the impact gun, I don't have any room to get down in there. But basically you remove this 12 here, this one, and there's another one on the far right here. Alright, so I was incorrect on, I was missing one fastener over there. So there's two 12 millimeters on the far right there. And we have 1, 2, 3 from there to the far right on over to the left. Come right up now. Repeat the same for the other side. So it seems like, unlike once you get one off, we can now run the other side off with the impact. It looks like, yep. I don't know how those got down there. There's, okay, so I see there, okay, one side has, so one side has two, the other side only has one. So this is the only, bank 2 is the only one that has two holes in there. So you have these two right here, and you have these, this, and this. So 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. This one only has 1, 2, 3, 4 fasteners, and that's it. Pull these gaskets off. Don't really need to. So if you're going to pull on the bypass tube here, it's a possibility you might hit this knock sensor. Now, I don't think I did this when pulling out this bypass tube, but I, you know, never know. But it don't, now that I look at it, it don't look like I could have damaged that, no matter how much I pulled on it. This knock sensor was bad also. I mean, I didn't disturb anything until I just started working on it. Let's see what happens. Yep. So just sitting like that. It probably because it overheated. It looks very hot, like heat got to it. The O-ring actually looked pretty good for the age. It still protrudes there. Alright, let's pull the valve covers off. Alright, there should be a 6 millimeter coils. These are going in my save you for later pile. $10 millimeter to pull off the valve cover. Oh, 5/16. Alright, we're going to work on getting the cam position sensor out. That sits behind the cam here. So let's, so 17 millimeter here. Got the keyway. The key is attached to the cam gear, which is good. There's our cam position sensor on bank 2. We're going to remove the housing, which is just a 212 millimeter. Just like that, they're right out of there. There's your cam position sensor. You repeat the same thing for bank 1. Alright, the cylinder, the cams are the next thing we're going to look at. These are 12 millimeter. We're going to work on getting the pedestal out. Lift right on out. Oh no. Things in place. We're going to move the camshaft, going to remove this end cam cap here. Repeat the same for the other side. The cylinder head is going to be the next thing we're going to be taking off. Since everything's accessible, there are 12.14 millimeter. I'm just going to use a 1/2 inch drive with the reducer to a 3/4. 3/8. Sorry, 3/8 drive. Because I can't find my. Should be able to come right on off. That's what we got. This is what we got. Remember, this car had a blown head gasket because it ran hot. Not sure which bank it was. But see, it was blown. I have to pull the other head off and inspect that. try for the, take the rear number 1 bank off. Here's our number 1 bank. And this engine probably could have just used some heads and been fine, but I wouldn't have felt comfortable. I'm so glad I got a new motor in there. Cool. These pistons are directional, of course. They do have arrows, so this is going to be facing the timing belt. Timing belt was on this side here. Alright, I'm essentially removing all the 10mm fasteners I see. This is held on by RTV sealant. You just knock it off. I mean, it's, like I said, it's going to garbage anyway. It's going back. That's a cord. It's the inside of our oil pan. Pick up the baffle, and then we'll be able to see the crankshaft. I already got these 2 tins removed. Everything else will just be a 10mm. Right down here. Alright, to remove the pistons, it's going to be a 12.10mm. Simply just run those out. I think we're on bank 2. This is the one I'm pulling out. Again, I don't care, this motor's going to the junkyard. So these don't have any type of dial, but they are broken. So they are going to go in a, they can go in a fixed position. The locks are going to be facing one another with this particular engine. And it's like that for most of them, honestly. The locks will face each other. So we got the locks here. There's the locks on the rod end cap. There's none on the opposite side. And they're simply just going to intertwine with one another, make that good connection. You put them in the opposite direction, it's just not going to fit appropriately. It's not going to be flush. So those were 10 millimeter. Let's just pull the oil pump out, and I think we'll be done. But if you want to finish removing the crankshaft here, you would just use these are 14 millimeter. So the main caps are here, 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 and once you remove the oil pump, then you'll be able to extract the crankshaft. So let's pull off the oil pump. Work on removing this oil pump. So I gotta go. So if you was to remove this with the oil pump with the vehicle still in the engine, or even like right now, you do have to remove the oil pan to remove the pickup. This is also held on by the RTV sealant. That should be it. Should just pull it out. Here's my hammer. That's that. That's the back of the oil pump housing here. This is what latches onto the crankshaft. The crankshaft rotates in this fixed position. Now there is a notch where it can only go in 2 different directions, but there's no timing on the water pump. And I said the water pump. There's no timing where it has to be in a specific location, so you can just put it in any direction. You got a seal here, and shouldn't be a seal. Yeah, that's only one seal, and the rest is RTV sealant. For the most part, this J series is torn all the way down, for the exception of just a couple things I didn't go all the way through. We didn't remove the crankshaft, but you know, this is very simplistic. Once we got up to that point, you would just basically just continue to remove those end caps I was referring to, and simply extract the crankshaft, where you should see the main journals, the end caps, of course, for the mains, and you'll see some thrust washers. This took a lot longer than what I thought. I was hoping I could just breeze right through this, but you know, I'm recording and stuff. So, well, other than that, I'll try to implement the torque specs. I'll try my best to, so it'll be helpful. But you know, I'm hoping that the people that will probably watch this is going to do their own due diligence and look for the torque specs themselves, because I mean, this is not going to apply to all J series engines. As we saw, there were some ports that just basically went to nothingness, you know, such as the rear of the housing. It went nowhere. But I'm pretty sure on another motor it probably had a purpose. So I'll try my best to, but don't hold me on that. It's not like I get paid a shit ton on YouTube. So, but this is a J30. It went into the 2007 Honda Accord that I just did. I put a motor in there. Also, that's the video I did a computer in that had no communication. But other than that, this should be pretty useful. I mean, I haven't found a video like this on the internet. I think I beat the internet on this one. Probably not. But hit that link. Subscribe to the channel. Stay informed on how to reassurance my work. See you next one.